Hello, welcome back to the Allsport podcast. I'm here with Ryan Bell and former Premier League player Darren Holloway. Darren, how you doing?
Hi, you alright?
You alright, good. Right, okay, so we're going to get into the questions, right?
Cool.
Now, so you started off your career at Sunderland. How old were you when you first signed?
So I did, back in the day, it was called a YTS scheme. So I left school and went into a YTS scheme at Sunderland. So from leaving school, I went there for a year, did reasonably well, and I was fortunate enough to then sign a professional contract just after my 17th birthday. So that's when things started to get real as such.
Your debut came against Crystal Palace, where you won 1-0 in front of about 14,000 fans. What was the feeling first stepping onto the pitch?
It didn't actually. My debut come away at Stoke. So I think I'd been involved in a game at Crystal Palace. I think I was on the bench, but I didn't get on. I think that was at Roker Park. And my debut come, I think it was the following year. I'd been away on loan at Carlisle, come back, and I was itching to play. Went and knocked on the gaffer's door, Reedy's door, and a couple of weeks later I made my debut away at Stoke, which was great. I think we ended up being the youngest back four in a Sunderland history for, well, I think it still might be a record actually as the youngest back four. There was myself right back, left back was Mickey Gray, Darren Williams and Jody Craddock, so we were still tender then. I think I would just turned 20 at the time. I think it was just after my birthday. I think it was late October '97.
Do you know, with settling in with older players like in the squad, did you find it easy to settle in, or was it a bit harder?
I think it was easier because back in them days we had the reserves, so you were playing football with lads that were like coming up 30 or had played 500 league games and stuff like that. Yeah. So that in itself made the transition a lot easier with first team. And to be fair, I was training with the first team from probably 18, 19 upwards anyway. I was training with the senior pros anyway then, so it was an easier transition for me.
Yeah.
What was your best moment for just in football and for Sunderland?
Difficult. I think if you look at it, one of my things that stands out for me was Peter Reid and the then youth team manager Ricky Sprazier come up to me and announced that I was going to get a professional contract. Like I said, I was fortunate because I just turned 17, so it came a year early. So I'd obviously been doing well, so they rewarded me with a professional contract. So that stands out because then it was like that was proper. Do you know what I mean? That was what my dreams were. I was always wanting to be a professional footballer, and on getting offered that contract, that meant that my dreams had started to come true. With that, then obviously becomes the debut, making your debut, and then obviously my England call up to under 21s and stuff like that. I was really, really proud. Made the family really proud. So there's various things that stand out, but I think primarily it's that first step on the ladder. So that the getting offered the professional contract, I think that stands out.
Do you think with like how do I put it, like working within like a role of football, like becoming that first step, did that sort of make it more attainable for you to then have a prolonged career? Like, was that always like the goal, to be a footballer for 10 plus years or whatever?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I can remember going to a careers advice who come into the school, and she sat me down and said, what do you want to be? And I said, I want to be a professional footballer. And she went, yeah, but what about something else? Choose something else. I went, no, that's like that's what I'm working towards. Mm-hmm. But with that, obviously, there was a sense of realism because I'd obviously been a decent player when I was younger, so it wasn't just me pulling a dream out the air. I was working towards that. But I think in football, there's a lot of things that can go your way or go against you. Injuries for one. Football's all about opinions as well, so people might think you're at this level and people might not think you're at that level, so football's all about opinions as well. So things have got to run correct for people to get an opportunity to have a prolonged career. I was lucky, even though with the injuries that I had, I still had a reasonably long career in football, shall I say, so not too bad.
Do you think with the opinions like of the fans, did that ever get you, stuff like that?
No, I think I was fortunate because the fans always backed me. So I think I was being a young local lad who come through the ranks. I don't think I was ever any issue with that. And I think the fans, Sunderland fans, are not daft either. So I was giving me all every time I played. So even though I might have been lacking in certain abilities, I was giving me all, and I think the fans could see that and they appreciated that.
Now, you started as a centre half, is that right?
I went to Sunderland initially as a midfielder, and then very quickly I got asked to play centre half in the youth team, and it was kind of something I was reasonably good defender anyway. I'd played defence for school teams and other teams and districts and stuff like that. So I'd had dabbled in playing centre half, and then when I went in the youth team, it was just kind of like, right, that's where we see you playing. Really enjoyed my time there, but then to get in the Sunderland team at the time, my reserve team manager, a bloke called Brian Pop Robson, he advised me. He said, listen, I think there might be a route into the first team if you're willing to go and play right back. So he persuaded me and gave me a chance and opportunity to play right back in the reserves, and that's where I was fortunate enough to get me my first team break at right back.
What was your initial reaction to playing right back?
For me, it was something that I played full back when I was younger, but it wasn't something that I thought, because you're in and out of games a lot of the time, because being on the sides. But to be honest, it worked for me. It was kind of a decent fit. I mean, I wasn't probably, looking back, I wasn't probably the modern day fullback now. I was more of a defender. So fullbacks now are asked to go forward a lot more and attack, where my principles were, my strengths were defending. So I was kind of just your normal defender that would tuck in alongside a centre half and make sure they're all right, rather than galloping up and down the line and putting crosses in. But no, I enjoyed the right back, and like I say, give me that break to get in the first team, so there's no complaints there.
Well, yeah, you started your career off well with Sunderland, finishing high in the Premier League, and then you were on loan to Carlisle, was it?
I went on loan to Carlisle first. It was my first. Brian Pop Robson, the name keeps popping up a lot, because he played a significant part in my development. Brian Pop Robson said, listen, I think it might be a good opportunity for you to go out on loan and prove yourself in the Football League, just so people can trust you, because I was still 19 at the time, so still relatively young. So I took the opportunity, went to Carlisle. I had a month at Carlisle, did really well. Come back, they wanted to keep me. They put a bid in for me, which would have been a record bid for them had it been accepted. Sunderland didn't accept it, so then it was a case of me knocking on Peter Reid's door saying, listen, I need an opportunity to be in the first team. So Carlisle was my first step of playing Football League, so that was my Football League debut, going away to Carlisle for that month. Really enjoyed it, and that was kind of what set me on the road to probably getting the first team call up, to be fair, because I think really then the gaffer probably looked at it and thought, you know what, I can trust Darren, even though he's young, 19-year-old. I can trust him. I think he can do well for us. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, I ended up getting in the team and staying in for a prolonged period of time.
What was the differences from playing in the team more well-funded for Sunderland and then moving to Carlisle?
So Carlisle, to be fair, we had a lot of decent players, and in the league that we were playing in was relatively competitive in there. So yes, in levels of football, there's always different levels of ability. There's no getting away from that. That's just how it is. But there was still talented individuals there. There was we had Rory Delap, who went on to have a really good career in the Premier League. Matt Jansen again, who moved for good money. He had a spell at Blackburn Rovers. So they had some good players there at Carlisle. But obviously there is a difference the higher you move up, and it was the same when I went and joined in with the England squads, under 21 squads and that. There is a noticeable difference, and you look, sometimes you're there involved in it, but you take a step back and you go, wow, they're really good. Do you know what I mean? Compared to where I thought I was, I thought, wow, they're really good. But no, it's always going to be the same in football. You'll have levels, and people kind of reach them certain levels, and that's probably why they're at the lower end of the pyramid in terms of the Football League. But there's still some cracking individuals that are talented there, and there's no doubt about that.
Did you play in some different positions in Carlisle?
I ended up playing, well, funny enough, when I went to Carlisle, the manager played me right wing back, which I've never ever been a right wing back. As I mentioned previously, my makeup wasn't to like get up the line and stick crosses in and take people on. That wasn't me. I was more of a defender, putting tackles in, winning headers, and and basically passing the ball to the more talented individuals who could take people on. So I played right wing back. Didn't enjoy it, but obviously done relatively well. But after the game, I went in and spoke to the manager, who was Mervyn Day at the time, and I just said, listen, it's not a position for me that I'm never ever going to play that position in me football life. So I'm not quite happy. And he's like, oh, you did great. And I was like, yeah, I know I did reasonably well, but I think I can do better if I'm in a more comfortable position.
Yeah.
Anyway, we played away at Blackpool. I think it was a midweek game or the following week. We got beat, I think it was 1-0, and unfortunately for Mervyn got sacked then. So two games into my loan period, the manager gets sacked. But luckily for me, the caretaker managers come and asked me and said, right, Darren, where do you want to play? And I said, well, I want to play right back. Luckily they put me in right back, and like I said, I never looked back from there really. So things worked out, and that's what I say about football. Sometimes you get lucky breaks and things like that, and on this occasion it worked out well for me.
How was it like dealing with a new manager coming in just 2 games after what manager's left?
It was strange, because bearing in mind this is my first taste of like football league and stuff like that, and it was my first loan move. So I was lucky in a sense, because the 2 lads that came in were already part of the coaching staff, so I was familiar with them from coming through the door at Carlisle. So that made it a lot easier, and the fact that they'd asked me, do you know what I mean, where do I want to play? So they obviously thought highly of me, so I think that put me at ease as well, which was great.
So you mentioned before how you made it into the England, was it under 21s?
Yeah, under 21s squad, yeah.
And you were playing alongside players like Jamie Redknapp and Jamie Carragher and Frank Lampard. What was your initial reaction to seeing them?
Yeah, like I said, you go to training and that, you see them do certain things and you go, wow, like I'm still not at that level yet. There's still a long way to go. There was lads that are obviously playing week in, week out in their Premier League clubs at big clubs, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The Man Uniteds. I think Frank might have been at West Ham at the time, Frank Lampard. But Jamie Carragher, Redknapp, obviously good players. The squad that we got called up to was classed as like an under 21 and a B international. So we had a lot of older lads, the likes of Jamie Redknapp, Nicky Barmby, Dominic Matteo, who went on to play for Scotland. So there's some really good players there, and lads that were further, like I say, further on than me in terms of their careers and stuff like that. But you get to see just how, and like I said before, it's all about levels. You get to see just how good some people are, and the people who don't see these lads day in, day out, or week in, week out, you don't actually appreciate just how good they are. Wes Brown was phenomenal, and Wes was a couple of years younger than me. And he was skillful, and he was a defender who was skillful, and I thought, wow, he's got a bit of everything here. Do you know what a player he is? But if you just stand in the stand, if you sat in the stand, sometimes you don't actually see just how good these players are. But me, having worked with them and trained with them and seen it firsthand, it was a big eye opener for me. Yeah.
Was it a big learning curve for you as well? Did you learn a lot when you went away to camp?
Yeah, very much so. There was good coaches. Sammy Lee was a coach who he played for Liverpool back in the day and was highly respected coach, still at Liverpool. And Sammy Lee followed Sam Allardyce around, and I think he's still with West Brom now. Peter Taylor, who was manager of the 21s, again, good coach. So it was a case of like going away and like you could learn a lot of things, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not only tactically, but like it kind of brought me a bit of realisation there's still a long way to go for me to try and attain what I want to attain.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great experience and one that I look back really fondly of.
Would you say that they were some of the best players you played with, or would you go for some of the Sunderland lads?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, you look at some of the likes of Frank Lampard's career. Do you know what I mean? It's a phenomenal career. Jamie Carragher had a great career. All them lads in the England setup. I mean, I played with some really ridiculously good lads. Ledley King was phenomenal, but Ledley suffered with injuries. Wes Brown, like I said, great player. Gareth Barry. There's loads of them in the England setup that really went on and had good careers. The lads at Sunderland, I always revert back to them because I spent a lot of time with them, so I played a lot of football with them. The England setups is obviously you meet up once in a blue moon and you go away and you have a training camp or you go and play a game. But the Sunderland lads, the likes of Kevin Phillips and Niall Quinn, stick out like a sore thumb because they had a magical partnership together and obviously scored a lot of goals and were in a successful Sunderland side.
And you also played in the Premier League. What was it like playing some of the best players in the world, especially when Man United were probably the best team ever? What was it like playing some of their attackers?
Yeah, it was challenging because obviously they were really good. People ask me a lot of time, who was the most difficult opponent you've ever had, and I'll probably say Ryan Giggs. He probably ran faster with the ball than I did without it, so it was very very difficult day at the office when they come into town because he had a phenomenal size. But yeah, there's some great players that I've played against. The Arsenal team that come to the stadium like first game of the season, we actually beat them. You've got Thierry Henry, you've got Patrick Vieira, and all these big names and that. So it was, like I said, it was very challenging, but it was something that I always looked forward to. I looked forward to the challenge. It didn't scare me or anything like that. I knew it was going to be difficult at times, but it was great to rub shoulders with them sort of players.
Would you say it was fun playing them or just difficult?
It's only fun if you win. But no, I think any footballer will tell you, winning, a lot of footballers now, winning is the be all and end all. So regardless of how you win, winning is important, especially when you get to that level because it means so much. So you love the times when you win, you obviously dislike the times when you don't, and you go over things and you think, what could I have done better? Could I have done this? Could I have done that? What did we get wrong as a team? What did I get wrong as an individual? But no, I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but I would have enjoyed it more if we'd won more games against the likes of them players.
Yeah.
Did you ever sometimes just think, I can't be bothered today, I've got to go up against someone like Giggsy or any sort of like fast player who knew you'd cause problems for you?
No, never to that extent. Like I said, I always liked the challenge. Obviously, I knew there's going to be challenges that were better than others.
Yeah.
But in terms of that, no. Football's difficult because like you never, as a footballer, you never probably go into a game 100% fit. Yeah, you might carry a knock, you might carry a little niggle. Mentally, you might not have been there. You might have changed something in your pre-match routine, and it's on your mind or something like that. A lot of people have rituals. I didn't, so I would see lads in change rooms putting the left boot on and then the right boot and the left shin pad on and the right shin pad, and I wasn't like that. I just kind of like wanted to get in a routine of where I was like, right, my mind's in the game. This is what I need to do today. Don't get me wrong, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work, sometimes I got run ragged, other times I came out on top, but like I said, I enjoyed the challenge nevertheless. But I didn't ever go into a game thinking, oh, this is what's going to happen today. I think mentally I was much stronger than that, so it was kind of like I wanted to step up to the challenge.
Yeah. Did you ever have a player that you really enjoyed playing against?
I kind of think off the top of my head, but football's changed a lot now, so like in my era you could tackle, so you can't necessarily do that now. So for me, and I was always competitive and aggressive, and that was big tools of my game. So, and I always say to people now, like, basically you used to find out what sort of game you were going to get off say if I was playing right back, off a left winger, because if I flew into a tackle and I managed to hurt the opposition, you might see that person not really want the ball again, and you think, oh, I'm in for a good day, I'm in for an easy day. But then on the flip side of it, that same player might go right, I want the ball again, and come at you. So you kind of get a feeling of what sort of day you're going to get. But like I said, I think I'd be lost in today's football because you just can't tackle no more, and it's a bit sterile now. But I think I definitely, in terms of the football and watching it and how exciting it was, I think I'm fortunate enough to have played in that era where it was very enjoyable to watch.
What would you say the main differences and similarities are from now and then?
The difference is probably there's a lot more work on the technical aspect of the game and tactics and stuff like that. With that, for me, comes boredom, because I love football, but I can put on a Premier League game and I lose interest because a lot of the time it's just keeping the ball and moving the ball and possession and stuff like that. But there's still, the football will basically never change. There's still similarities there. People dress it up and use different words and buzzwords and stuff like that. I can remember going to a coaching conference once, and they were talking about Borussia Dortmund and this Gegenpress, which is a German word basically for pressing, which is something that we used to do anyway, but it just become fashionable because Dortmund did it. So the principles of football will never change. You're trying to work from one end to the other and score goals, and that will never change. But in terms of like as a spectacle, I do think it's a lot less exciting now than what it was years ago. Crowds used to get on the feet for people making tackles, and now you can't do that.
Yeah.
And that used to set the tone a lot of the time. Someone going in for a 50-50 and coming out on top and clapping someone, and that would get the crowd going, and that would get your teammates going. And I think football misses that now because it's getting a bit sterile.
Who would you say was the best manager that you worked under?
Just for probably the amount of time I spent there, I'd say Peter Reid. Obviously I came to Sunderland before Peter Reid came in, so I think Peter maybe's come in, I must have been nearly a year through my first YTS. Mick Buxton was the manager before him, and then Peter Reid come in, and it was like brilliant, because no disrespect to Mick Buxton who'd left, but Peter Reid there, he's played at top flight, he's played in like World Cup, England International, so straight away you've got respect of him, and he was a born winner. He just wanted to win, and I think he got that across to us as a team, to do our best to stick together, to try and win games of football, but doing it the right way as well. He was adamant that we should play football, get it down, pass, and lads express themselves higher up the pitch when they needed to. So I think he stands out. But I've been fortunate, like I said, I've been fortunate in who I bumped into in my time. I went on loan to Bolton, so I bumped into obviously Sam Allardyce then. But I was only there a short while, a month, and I was shocked, to be fair, because Sam Allardyce was this big, ugly centre half that used to play for Blackpool, and I thought his tactics and everything and the way he would have been like old school and old fashioned.
Yeah.
But when I went there to Bolton, there was a lot of foreign lads, like a lot of flair players, and Sam was kind of ahead of his time in terms of like how football was going then. Lads were doing a lot of gym work and stuff like that, so he kind of acknowledged that football was changing, and he was kind of putting things into place then, even that long ago at Bolton. So Sam obviously went on to have a great managerial career, and obviously had the debacle with England, but it would have been nice to see how he did with that. And then Colin Todd, I had a spell with Colin Todd, who was at Bradford City when I was at Bradford, but by all accounts like really, really good footballer, so again you get respect there, England International. But yeah, as I say, the standout one for me is probably Peter Reid, yeah, without a doubt.
Because Sunderland had quite an impressive team, you did spend a little bit of time on the bench. What's that like? How does it affect you mentally?
Yeah, so even when I come through, I had that spell where I was in the team for nearly the end of the season. It was end of the season anyway, because we ended up getting to the playoffs, and then after that, we went on I was struggling in the playoffs with the back injury, and then we went away. We had our holidays, come back for pre-season. We'd gone away somewhere down the West Country, down Plymouth or somewhere like that, and I played a game, and I didn't know this, but Reid had rang my agent. I had an agent at the time, and my agent rang me up and said, "What's up with you?" Because I've had Reid on the phone saying, there's something the matter, you're not right. And I was like, I'm struggling with me back. So I ended up missing 6 months of the season because of that. I went and seen loads of different specialists and things like that. So that took me a bit of time. So having played all that time the previous season, then I was having to wait and be patient to get back in, because obviously someone else comes in your place and does well, you cannot be expected to walk back into a team, especially a team that's doing well.
Yeah.
But every footballer, I'll tell you, they just want to play football, and I was no different. I used to hate sitting on the sidelines. I used to hate being injured and in the stand. I used to hate it because you want to kick every ball. You just want to be out there. So it was never nice, but it's part and parcel of football, and I think it's probably even more so now because football these days is getting more and more like a squad game. You need a good squad to make sure that you're successful. So yes, never nice, hated it and disliked it and wish I'd have played a lot more games. But like I said, injuries play a part in that, and trying to just pick up a bit of form to like give you an opportunity to stay in the team, which is difficult when you're in and out.
And how does it affect you mentally when you're injured and you can't play?
Mentally, footballers go through. I think footballers go through bad spells when they're injured, especially over a long period of time. Because I'm not sure what it's like now, but you're in earlier than the rest of the lads, so you're not in the change. You miss that camaraderie in the change room before they go out to train and stuff like that. You're in earlier, you leave later. You a lot of time you'll be working on your own or just with a physio and stuff like that. So it is difficult, and a lot of lads do find it hard and probably go through a little bit of depression with regards to that. So mentally you've got to be try and be strong and just focused of getting out on the other side and doing everything you can with your rehab and working with the physios and stuff like that. But yeah, it's never nice. It's like something that you love being taken away from you, and you're itching to get back. It's a difficult one to understand, but it's never nice. But I think it's just a case of being mentally strong and being focused to get back and try and do your best to be fit coming out the other side.
And what's it like, because you're at Sunderland for a number of years, what's it like having to leave that club and go and sign for another club?
It was, to be honest, it was heart-wrenching. I probably didn't want to go, but it kind of felt like I was forced to go. Everyone, in football, a lot of people have regrets. You make decisions and you stand by them and stuff like that, but looking back, I wish I hadn't been forced to leave, but it felt like that was the way it was going. There probably would have been other clubs who'd come in for me because I'd started in the Premier League. I'd been started the first 5 years of the Premier League. I was like an England under-21 international, but I think really kind of wanted me ushered away down south out the way. So I went to Wimbledon. Wimbledon, funny enough, had just getting relegated the season before, so it was their first time in the Championship or Division 1 or whatever it was then. And I thought, you know what, they might end up coming back up anyway, had a good team, John Hart and people like that, really good team. And I was probably naive, I was young and naive, I think I was 22, 23 at the time. And I had an agent who was pushing it. My agent was pushing the deal because obviously he was going to make money out of it. So he was pushing it, and looking back, I wish I wasn't so naive, but these things happen in football. Probably I wouldn't have been the first person to make a poor decision or being ill-advised. But like I said, it did sound promising when I went down there and they were talking about a new stadium, new ground, new training facility, and the prospect of getting back in the Premier League. But it just didn't work. After a year, well, after the first season when we missed out on the playoffs, it kind of started going a bit peaked-on. And we were losing good players, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, if you're selling these players, you're not gonna get up the pyramid again. And I think they struggled to get a ground, which again put them into a bit of a dire mess because they were playing out at Selhurst Park, obviously where Crystal Palace play. So it was a difficult time. I loved the first 18 months because we had a good team. I loved that first 18 months, but like I said, once it started to go a bit downhill, then I think it was tricky then because you kind of knew that you weren't going to get back up the ladder.
Yeah. And what's it like settling into a team after you've been at another club for years?
It's difficult because obviously I'm a northern boy and going down to London, and it was something that, and like I said, I didn't really want to do, but it was kind of like forced on me and stuff like that. So that was hard because like I'd never wanted to be living down near London or anything like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm a northern boy from a little town up here, going down to the big smoke like a fish out of water. But no, the lads were great. I mean, I stayed in a hotel, and there's Jason Ewell, lad who had a very good career as well. He's at Charlton coaching now. But Ewell used to come and pick me up and take me out for a drink and stuff like that. So he helped me settle in massively. And like I say, the lads were all good. So that helped. It makes a big difference when you've got a decent changing room as well to invite you into.
So that's another thing, moving from the north, which is quite small, to a big London club, and that must be very difficult. How did you get into doing the assistant manager?
It's a strange one because I always wanted to get into coaching. Even when I was playing, I was thinking about doing my badges, qualifications and stuff like that. So it was always kind of something that I'd always thought about doing. But me and Alan Armstrong go back to when we used to play at Darlington. So we used to travel in together. So Alan Armstrong, we used to share rides travelling in together at Darlington. And I bumped into Alan again when we were both working at Middlesbrough Academy. He'd worked there a number of years. And I'd not long been there, maybe it's about a year, 9 months or something like that. And he come and pulled me and said, listen, I've got an opportunity of going up to Blythe and being manager of Blythe Spartans. He said, I'd like you to be my assistant. And I was like, all right, I've got quite a lot on, do you know what I mean? Obviously working at the college and doing the academy. So I didn't have a lot of time to myself anyway. And I said, listen, you go up there, get your feet under the table, see how it is. I said, I can't say yes or no yet because like I need to spend a bit of time thinking about it because I'm basically like working all hours. But sure enough, he got his feet under the table and he said, listen, come up. And I said, oh, can I come up and just see how it is, do you know what I mean, without making a decision. He was like, yeah, come up. So I came up, he got me involved in a game, asked me for my input and stuff like that. And I loved it because it was like proper football where it meant everything. Getting 3 points and winning the game meant everything. The academy side of it is a bit different because it's more for development, where this aspect of it is basically you're all out to win games of football. It's not about development, you just want to win games of football. Yes, if you can do it the right way, then great, and improve, then great. But in reality, you just want to climb the league and do well. So that was it, that kind of got me hooked straight away, and I was like, yeah, I'll come on board with you. And we had a fantastic time at Blythe, 3 years there, got promoted, won a cup, got in the playoffs and just missed out on a penalty shootout. And then obviously Alan moved on to Darlington to become manager there, and again asked me to come over with him to be his assistant, which I jumped at the chance of doing.
And what's it like when you bring new players in from transfers? What's it like dealing with them?
So it's the non-league stuff is difficult because we still part-time. So in our league, there's teams that are still there's full-time teams in there, full professional time teams, yeah. And there's teams like ourselves which are part-time. So a lot of our lads have got jobs. So we've got to take that into consideration as well. We're not going to get them travelling from all over the country, so we've got to make sure that they're a bit more localised in terms of getting to logistics-wise, getting to training and games and stuff like that. But we look first and foremost at what they like as a player, their ability, and then we try and do a bit of background digging on them and see what they like as a person, because I think that's important as well. You need to get right people in the dressing room to make sure the environment's good and the dynamics of the group are good. And then once they're through the door, then we'll work on them, and we'll put them in the team, in a squad, and hopefully they'll benefit and make us stronger.
How do different players react to injuries? So
like I said before, there's a lot of times when you'll see even lads I knew and played with and that you couldn't speak to them when they were injured. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of, believe it or not, a lot of managers would kind of dismiss the injured lads and not really speak to them, which made things even worse. But some lads are different. Some lads, it's like anything else. You'll find some people are more mentally stronger than other people, and I think that falls in football as well. Some people they'll hit hard and they'll have a sulk, they'll have a pet lip out, and they'll go through the motions, where there'll be other lads that'll crack onto it and do exactly what the physio wants to do and rehab to the best of their ability. But it's like I said, it's never nice because no one wants to be injured. You want to be fighting fit and playing football.